Eddie Howe was not exactly overjoyed, rather being cup-tied. That's on the video was free to play for Manchester City here. Sure enough, the Newcastle manager Eddie Howe feared will realize, as the winger played the competition for season's quarterfinals. Scored City's opener and had another ruled goal, disallowed before Ryan Turkey's stoppage time second put the smile back on Pep Guardiola's face. With the second leg at the Etihad Stadium early next month, this semi-final is not quite over, but thanks to not merely Semenyo, but some fine goalkeeping from James Trafford, Newcastle's defence of the Carabao Cup they hoisted last March is looking distinctly fragile. The holders had kicked off buoyed by news that their Saudi Arabian majority owners are to announce plans for the construction of a £200 million training ground a few miles up the road at Gosforth Park. Situated close to both the Newcastle's airport, from where the team fly to and from virtually every match, and a majority of the players' homes in the upmarket Northumberland village of Ponteland IT, is an ideal location that should help make the club a more attractive destination for future signings. An expanding trophy collection will serve as an even greater magnet, and Newcastle's hopes of returning to Wembley briefly soared when, following a slick move involving Joe Linton, Anthony Gordon and Jacob Murphy, Yoane Wissa found himself with only Trafford to beat. Guardiola looked aghast, but happily for City's manager, the striker's composure deserted him and he duly miscued, shooting over the crossbar a little more than 6 yards. It would prove the best chance of an underwhelming first half. Like Wissa, Erling Haaland's touches were strictly rationed and, perhaps distracted by Nick Pope's outstretched toe, the Norwegian centre-forward spurred his one and only opening of the first 45 minutes following Bernardo Silva's dangerous cross. Too often he and Semenyo entered each other's orbits, moving with the suspicion of strangers. Initially, it all left both Pope and Trafford, who came close to joining Newcastle from Burnley last summer and is still much admired by Howe, with relatively little to do. Guardiola, though, still looked a little uneasy as the impressive Lewis Miley and Murphy aimed to pressure arguably City's weakest defensive link, their left-back, Nathan Hawke, at every opportunity. With tension and tempers mounting, Nico O'Reilly and Joe Linton squared up in midfield and began pushing and shoving each other in the manner of children in a primary school playground. Both were shown yellow cards. Howe, too, lost his composure after detecting some slapdash midfield play on Jacob Ramsey's part. Newcastle's manager looked in danger of spontaneous combustion as he leapt forward, punching thin air and screaming invective at a player selected ahead of the fatigued Sandro Tonali. If his mood hardly improved as a hamstring injury forced Murphy's replacement by Harvey Barnes shortly before the interval, at least his fullbacks, Miley and Lewis Hall, were ensuring that City's own wingers, Semenyo and, to a lesser extent, Jeremy Doku, were generally being kept on reasonably tight reins. The same applied to Wissa, but when a striker who struggled to hold the ball up throughout finally escaped his minders and directed a looping header goalwards, Trafford made a save of such high caliber that it was all too easy to see why Howe still covets him. As Bruno Guimaraes lashed the rebound off the post, it seemed a watershed moment had arrived and, almost immediately, Semenyo stepped out of the shadows. Unlike Wissa, he made the very most of that emergence into the sunlight. When Barnes hesitated, Doku pounced, unleashing a cross that Silva helped into Semenyo's path. All that remained was for the £62.5 million signing from Bournemouth to score his second goal in 2 games as a City player. By way of emphasizing his special talent, Semenyo swiftly spotted that Newcastle had lost concentration at a corner and backheeled a glorious improvisational goal beyond Pope. Newcastle were rescued by a 5-minute and 30-second long video assistant referee review that eventually detected a marginal offside against Hall. The referee, Chris Kavanagh, was called to his monitor and he disallowed the goal. Guardiola appeared suitably unimpressed, and rightly so. It was unfair on both the crowd and the players who could definitely have done without standing around for so long in the January chill. Howe responded to this, albeit temporary, reprieve by introducing Tonali, Nick Pope made, and Anthony Elanga in place of Ramsey, Gordon, and Wissa. With virtually his first touch, Tonali met Elanga's cutback and sent a left-foot shot whizzing fractionally wide. For a while, Newcastle rallied, but the hosts were ultimately undone by a move of outstanding attacking fluency down City's left. It culminated with Cherki sweeping his fellow substitute Ryan Ait-Nouri's cutback beyond Pope in the dying seconds.